What's going on, YouTube? This is BBSP. I'm gonna come back with another installment of mine of the greatest teams of all time. I want to get an in-depth look and everything. You know, I've been kind of slow with this process, I know, but I take my time to break down things and examine the teams they played against and what happened during that particular season. Now, today is the 1971 Milwaukee Bucks. Of course, you know, they're, one of the most dominant teams of all time. Pretty much routed everybody in the playoffs. Of course, you had, who we know, Lou Alcindor, later on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and this is an MVP season for him. You know, he scored 34 points per game. It was a monster on the boards. Pretty much established himself as one of the all-time greatest players of all time. You know, he was arguably the best at his position during that particular time, or on his way to being the best, because you had still had Wilt Chamberlain, though a lot of people would say Wilt Chamberlain was pretty past his prime, and it was starting to become Kareem's position and dominate. He was the main guy in that position, the top guy in that position. Then you had Oscar Robertson, you know what I mean, guy. We spent a lot of time with the Cincinnati Royals. Most of his players in the Cincinnati Royals got traded to the Milwaukee Bucks during the 1969 season, or was it maybe a little bit earlier than that? Somebody got to let me know what's happening. But Oscar Robertson's all-around play is all-around play pretty much put them over the top. Plus you had guys like Bob Dandridge, John McLaughlin, guys like Greg Smith, Lucius Allen, Bob Boozer coming off the bench, providing scoring prowess off the bench. When you go back and look at the 1971 Bucks, they pretty much dominated from start to finish. See, back then they weren't advanced stats, but I wasn't sure. Going back doing research, whatever. But I'm pretty sure if there was advanced stats back then, the Bucks would definitely be at the top. They'd definitely be at the top. You know, they dominated the regular season. Winning about 66 games. They finished 66-16. I'm not sure. I got to look back on that. But in the playoffs, they went through a gauntlet of teams that had of who's who of Hall of Famers. You understand? Like, back then, there wasn't, they were buys. They only had if you had a top seed back then, you had a bye, then you played three best teams going forward. It wasn't like how it was, where it's the first 4 rounds you played through, whatever. So, basically, they went through a murderous row of Hall of Famers and Hall of Fame teams, and pretty much got over the hump. In the playoff, their first opponent out the gate, San Francisco / Golden State Warriors. You had Al Attles, Rick Barry, up and coming, though I may not suggest he may not have been on that team. I might be wrong. Then you had Jerry Lucas, and you had a dominant Nate Thurman out the gate, right out the gate. Pretty much dominated them from start to finish. That was a 5-game series. You had Nate Thurman and Kareem going, clashing in the paint. Then you had Oscar match up against Al Attles and Jerry Lucas. Pretty good matchup, but Milwaukee found a way to win that. And when I think about it, Kareem faced a gauntlet of centers from start to finish. Basically beat the San Francisco Warriors, swept the San Francisco Warriors. No. I'll take that back. Beat them in 5 games. Then it was Clash of the Titans. The Milwaukee Bucks versus the Los Angeles Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. Back then it was known as the Western Division Finals, whatever. But yeah, straight up. People didn't know this. People may not know this, but Milwaukee Bucks was in the Western Conference when they first came into the NBA. And later transferred to the Eastern Conference like I want to say the 77, 78 season. Somebody, a lot of these things I'm off on, but somebody let me know. But Western Conference Finals, Western Division Finals between the Milwaukee Bucks, Los Angeles Lakers. That was like a clash. Back then it was considered Clash of the Titans. You had Oscar, Kareem, and the Bucks versus Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, of course, Elgin Baylor, Gail Goodrich, Happy Hairston, all those guys in the Los Angeles Lakers, right? Turns out, Milwaukee Bucks dismantled them easily in 5 games, though you can make an argument those games were pretty close. They were real close, especially the battle within the battle with Kareem and Wilt going at it in the paint. Wilt held his own for the most part, but Kareem gave it right back to him, with the sky hook, the post play in the post, and everything in far between. And Oscar was just too much for Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. And plus the bench, like I said before, rest of the supporting cast, John McLaughlin, Bob Dandridge, Bob Boozer, Luscious Allen, outplayed Happy Hairston, Gail Goodrich, and the rest of Elgin Baylor, rest of supporting cast. That would have been one of the best matchups if that happened. Let's say in the '90s or the 2000s or now. That would have been must see TV. It probably was still. It was still must see TV back then, but the hype and hoopla just wasn't there because you didn't have all this media exposure like you do now. But yeah, pretty much Clash of the Titans turned out to be a mismatch as the Milwaukee Bucks beat the Los Angeles Lakers in 5 games straight up, which leads to the NBA Finals between the Bucks and the then known as the Baltimore Bullets, which would later be the Washington Bullets, which would later be the Washington Wizards, straight up. But yeah, even that wasn't going to be an easy matchup as far as matching up because Baltimore Bullets were pretty loaded themselves. You had Gus Johnson, Earl Monroe, and the late great Wes Unseld on that team. But as it turns out, Milwaukee's dominance was too much for Baltimore Bullets. I mean, they put up a good fight, but the collective brilliance of Oscar, Kareem, and the Milwaukee Bucks was too much for them to overcome. Kareem's numbers during that final series, even though it was a 4-game sweep, was pretty staggering. And Oscar did his thing, put up triple doubles back and forth and doing his part, playing a secondary role, because by this time, Oscar was pretty much past his prime, whatever, right? And he was looking for that elusive championship, So just imagine what this team would be like in Oscar's prime, going all the way back to the early 60s. See, the Kareem was the dominant player and the youngest player on the team, one of the youngest. Oscar, you might as well say, was the elder statesman on the team, He was the guy looking for that elusive championship. He was the veteran. Kareem was just getting started with his dominance and his, run in the NBA of longevity. But Milwaukee Bucks would beat the Baltimore Bullets in 4 games to win the franchise's championship. First and only championship, 1971. Kareem was Finals MVP, put up a staggering 30.1 points per game, 11 rebounds, and right around four assists. I say, if those numbers are wrong, somebody correct me, but I'm pretty sure it was close to 30 points per game. Pretty much the supporting cast came through, you know. Bob Dandridge did his thing. John McLaughlin did his thing, and the bench led by Lucius Allen and Bob Boozer, you know, pretty much held the fort down, you know. But yeah, definitely one of the most dominant and greatest teams of all time, the 1971 Milwaukee Bucks. You know, probably if you take advanced stats into an equation, because advanced stats really wasn't a thing until about like the mid to late 80s, and even then it was kind of scarce. But if you take advanced stats now, and apply them to the 1971 Milwaukee Bucks, right? You can make an argument that they could be one of the top 5 teams in NBA history, straight up. But let me know what y'all think.